Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. It's 9:30. It's Chris and Mark asking the same question we ask every week. What's going on? I tell you what's going on, Mark. Quite a lot in the fan base at the minute. We've got managerial admissions. We've got crazy journalists. We've got fans wanting to kill each other. And we've got a certain Italian style wanting to go away. And amongst all of that, we've got a Premier League team that's struggling to find form. I tell you what, mate, it's a lot to get through, isn't it, Mark?
It is. It's been an odd couple of weeks, I think, for everybody, whether that's the club or whether that's for you. I think is definitely for sure.
I've certainly had a couple of tough days, I think, but we got through it. But it seems to be a really rough place now in the fan base. If you have a difference of opinion, and because it is so rough out there, sometimes you feel like you just need a little bit of backup. So we've called in the big guns tonight, and we've got some backup coming to help us. And there's no better man for the job than the True Geordie himself. Brian is in the house. Brian, how you doing, mate?
Thank you very much for the invite, lads. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for being here, mate. We need some protection, I think, these days, mate. Some of the opinions we're having, we're getting sniped at, mate. We're getting attacked.
Mate, I heard the Geordie Journal say they were getting like violent threats in their comments recently. I'm like, this is mental at the minute, isn't it? Crazy.
They're like the nicest kids you've ever met in your life. And you're like Dom Shear's just the nicest bloke I think I've ever heard talk on YouTube in my life. But it's like the Wild West at the minute. It's absolutely crazy. But we've got loads to get stuck into tonight with Brian as well in tow. So we're going to get into this in a minute. Before I do, a little reminder, if you haven't already, smash subscribe. Help get us to the next milestone. We're over 12,600 now. So we're pushing on to 13,000, which would be class if we can get there as soon as we possibly can.
You deserve a lot more, by the way, lads. Fantastic
Thank you, mate. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. But loads of you seem to like it. Some of you don't, but that's okay. If you don't like it, don't watch it. There's loads of stuff on YouTube to watch. You can watch cats falling downstairs. You can watch people running around with their tops off going mental. Whatever you want to do. You don't have to watch us and kick off and be hateful in the comments. There's no need for it. And the same with Brian's content as well. He did a video which was class of the day, which we're going to get into. We are live tonight. Jump in the chat as you always are. And let's get stuck into the first category. Well, Brian, you covered this as well a bit, I think, in your video. I'll come to you first in this. So after the Brentford game, I did my post-match. I was quite calm, actually. I think I described myself as a vicar delivering a Sunday sermon because I was accused of shouting too much to get clicks and likes. I thought I'd just try a different approach and actually got more views, which was very interesting for that
I preferred the ranting, though, I have to admit.
Well, that's like old school TG, to be fair, mate. Yeah, so I used to enjoy those videos back in the day massively, mate. That's my inspiration. But Eddie Howe came out and he looked like a dejected man in that press conference. He touched upon it. He said he needs to do better. He kind of admitted, that things aren't working. He's not getting the levels out of his players. Obviously, it's a little bit different from the recent press conference, which we'll get to in a second. But what was your take on Eddie, being that kind of a way, even though some crazy journalistic takes are that he's not under pressure, which I think is mental.
Do you know the way they praised him afterwards? They were like, that's a true leader right there. I'm like, admitting how fucked you are isn't exactly the best. Like he literally said, I've got to figure this out, meaning an acknowledgement of, I don't know what's going wrong. So when a leader stands up and yes, takes responsibility, on the one hand, that's a good thing. But on the other hand, you're like, it's not exactly instilling confidence in anyone. And the reality is that these results have been coming for months, in my opinion, like with those performances. And it felt like it just needed to happen in terms of him being honest and admitting, I'm really not doing a great job here. Like the amount of false positives he's taken from dog shit games, I'm sick to death of it. And the fact that he finally held his hands up and went, yeah, this is going wrong. I am not doing great right now. It was a relief. So for then journalists to still find a way to spin that as if that's not actually the case and that he's still such a great leader and it's everyone else's fault, but it's not Eddie Howe's fault. I'm like, you're really pathetic now, lads. Come on. I know you need him for your money. And I know that you're not journalists in the truest sense of the word and that you've got to play the game or whatever, but come on. He pointed the gun at himself and you still couldn't pull the trigger. You know what? The real journalistic integrity is now, and I'm not saying that the best, all the best speakers are on YouTube because you do get some fucking nutcases, and me included sometimes, but the integrity of some of this lot really needs to be called into question when they can't criticize and when even he's admitting I'm not doing a good enough job. What do you reckon?
No, I agree, Mark. I get your take on this as well. I think, Brian's absolutely right. The journalistic integrity, the impartiality seems to be eroding away from this whole situation. Like none of us want to see Eddie Howe struggling, right? We don't want to see Newcastle struggling. We don't want to be behind microphones talking about how shit things are and picking apart formations and wondering why Kieran Trippier's playing 4 games a week at 35 when he cannot run 2 yards without blowing his arse out. We don't want to talk about that. But as Brian says there, Mark, Eddie Howe come out and actually admitted, you know what, I'm not getting this right. And the spin on it, it's crackers. It's almost kind of Trumpian in a weird way, not to get political. Like this guy can do anything wrong, and it's turned on the fans. Mark, what was your take on that? I know you're normally a bit more diplomatic than me and Brian, but come on, get off that fence, Mark.
We need that, though, to be fair. We need that.
We do.
My favourite position is right in the middle, just not left, not right.
We call him Splinter. That's what we call him on the channel.
Splinter. Well, can I ask Mark, just before you start, mate, was the Brentford game a bit of a turning point for you in that sense, because it was kind of undeniably bad?
I've been kind of, that sounds strange, I've been on the turn, I think, for the last couple. I think if you go back to a previous couple of weeks, then I've said I was nearly there. I was nearly with the I think something just has to change to right the ship. But the performance overall on Saturday it was so poor. It was so, again, naive. I really felt that when you go back to the Liverpool game, the naivety in that play and the approach to that game was there for all to see. And it was the same again. Players out of position. Really, you touched on it in your video, Brian, with the even things like the jumping for headers. Like those are basics. Those are simple things, and the players are not doing those simple things right. And that, for me, feels like it's coming from the manager not instilling that confidence anymore in the players, and they're just not believing in the message that's being given to them anymore. And these are long-term pros. These aren't kids that are out there. These are 25, 26 on. The two best players in the squad are both 19 and 21 and look like they take on the world. But the vast majority, they're just not almost believing in the message anymore, and they're just not doing those basics properly. And I can understand from that Brentford game why the boos happened, why people have started to really question it more.
I think you're right, Mark, as well. The going on to the fan thing, it's a good lead into the fan thing. You're getting better at these segues, Mark. It's normally me that drives the segue.
I'm trying.
You've done quite well there, to be fair. You've done very well. But the boos, Brian, as well, half-time and full-time was interesting, because we'll get into this talking about the journalists. I'm not going to name the journalists because I don't really want to name them, but we all know who we're talking about. There's been a lot of stuff, a lot of sensational stuff being scribbled and thrown out there, almost a bit like Stan writing to Eminem. Some of this stuff, it's like some demented love letter to the manager. I've read some of it, and I can't believe some of the crap I'm reading, but some of the disingenuous insults, I'm going to call it, to fans who aren't in that ground at a particular time. Now, we all know, Brian, you've supported Newcastle for a long time. I've watched you right from the start, right? I watched you when you called Niall Ranger, you know what, and he deserved every single bit of it as well, right? Now, you've been to the ground, you've had a season ticket, you've moved away, you've come back. Other people have moved away from the region. Other people jack the season ticket and kind of get back into the ground, because guess what? Newsflash, the ground's too small because we haven't got a new stadium, everybody. But that's apparently everyone else's fault, bar, the ownership and everybody else. But the armchair expert line that's getting trotted out by the press here. I'm going to put it this to you, Brian. We had our CEO on Talk Sport the other day, right? And he was very smooth. He was very slick. And this guy used to work for Real Madrid, and he was talking about Real Madrid's global reach, right? I mean, do these people, these journalists, actually think every single Real Madrid fan around the world goes to the Bernabeu every week? Like, why are they being so derogatory to non-match going fans? Why are they drawing this line in the sand? I don't understand this.
It's funny because if the club takes the approach that the journalists take, we'll only ever be a small-time football club. Like, you look at the Chelseas of this world and Manchester Cities and how they grew their brand into a global brand, even though Man City, obviously, we know the situation they've got inside the stands, but as a club, they're now worldwide known because of what they've achieved on the pitch. And they probably have a lot of fans around the world because of the kind of football they played, what they've achieved. We have to take a leaf out of their book and understand that it's not just the match-going fans. Now, the thing about the match-going fans is interesting because I think what they try and do is act like what we're hearing online is not real because match-going fans were still chanting Eddie Howe's name. And I think that the two can be, they're not mutually exclusive. I can criticize Eddie online and still chant his name at a football match, and they're acting like the chanting of the name at the football match, it rubbishes what is being said online. But that's nonsense. And they're smart enough, in my opinion. If you're smart enough to get a degree in journalism, as much as I think it's highly overrated and it doesn't make you any better than anyone who's watched football for a good 10, 20 years anyway, they're smart enough to understand what they're doing there. It is gaslighting. And I think that this was a deliberate ploy in order to silence and rubbish the negativity and act like, well, the match-going fans don't think that, therefore this isn't really real. And what was great about that halftime and full-time booing is it acknowledged in the real world, in front of their eyes and their ears, we're not happy as a fan base here. And you can paint any narrative you want and lick Eddie Howe's arse clean out if you want. You're talking shit, actually. And it showed it. And for them afterwards to still, anyone to have the cheek to go, well, they were only booing the performance though, not the manager. Who the fuck is in charge of this performance like? You're talking shite, mate. So I think that it exposed a completely and utterly false narrative. And now we've got a bit of truth from the manager, from the fans, and that can only help the players know really that this isn't good enough. And it's about time, because it hasn't been good enough for a while.
You're absolutely spot on, Brian. I've said this on videos before. This was before. It almost feels like, just certainly over the last couple of weeks, it's just gone nuclear for some reason. Like I've been doing this 4 years, nowhere near as long as you, mate, but I've been doing this 4 years. I've never been clipped up in my entire life. And I've said some crazy shit over the years. Mm-hmm. I've had numerous rants where I've had veins popping out my neck about stuff, and no one's ever clipped me up. But such as the tone in the fan base now, the minute you step out of that little bubble of this guy is the best manager who's ever managed in football, they're gonna come and attack you. But you're absolutely right to hear the fans.
Can I jump in a second, because I want to ask you a question,
Brian?
And I want to ask both of you a question. I seen this comment the other day. Someone said that cup win was the best and worst thing that ever happened in Newcastle.
I agree.
In a sense of, it was the best day of our lives as a football fan, but it skewed the way we judge Eddie Howe to such a degree that when we're watching, and this is not exaggerating in any way, terrible football, week in, week out, there was a time where we were full throttle football, right? It was almost Klopp-esque. It wasn't quite as good, but it was right in that ilk. Now we're watching just disjointed, shitty passing, shitty defending, lack of pressure. The whole thing's terrible. But because fans are so in love with Eddie for what he gave us, because we never thought we'd get it, they're blinded by that love. And in a sense, it's made Eddie untouchable in the eyes of many fans. Is that a bad thing? And is the cup win almost having a negative impact in that sense?
Well, Mark, I'll let you take that one first, because I'll have a little thought about what I'm going to say. But what's your take on that one, Mark? Do you think there's
it's a hard question, lads, isn't it?
It is. That's why I've thrown Mark under the bus first, Brian.
Thanks, man. Cheers for that.
Post privileges.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this, and I've seen some comments about even the Champions League qualification. Kind of, it's been a good thing, but it's been terrible as well, because the club just wasn't ready for it. The first season round, as great as that was to have that night at St James's Park against PSG, the club wasn't ready. The infrastructure of the club, the training, the squad at the simplest point just wasn't ready for it, and it creates an unnatural expectation at that point, because the fans then have seen it and want more. Of course you do. When you sit and watching European football at home, and you're watching these games week in, week out, and playing at that level, get into cup finals, that's what you want to continue. So that almost being done too early, it's a blessing, because it was an amazing day for everybody, and the scenes at Wembley, the scenes in Newcastle afterwards, that when they did the parade was sensational. But it almost lifts that unnatural expectation, and then, well, what's next? What step can we take to next? And sometimes there's just, you have to hold hold base for a little while and consolidate where you are before you start to move up. And PSR and FFP and all that rubbish is stopping an immediate jump to the levels that perhaps some are expecting. But it doesn't help the manager in terms of that he then has that expectation put on him. And this is why I sway backwards and forwards with it, because I think sometimes he's been put in that position because he has done so well that there's an inevitability about the drop afterwards, because there's a level to where Newcastle possibly should be and where they've got to and where they want to be long term, and they're not there yet as a club. So you're looking at them going that it's great, but I think you're absolutely right. I think it's possibly been a bad thing overall. And I hate to even.
Can I just talk about the players then and piggyback off of that? Because I think it's actually not been a great thing for the players either, because I think you'd be hard pressed to find many players other than ones who probably didn't start in that cup final, like Lewis Hall, like Lewis Smiley. Bruno definitely has maintained his levels, but I think a lot of those players, they peaked at that moment and then they've dropped off a cliff since then. Even Alexander Isak did.
Yeah.
I agree.
You go back to the first Champions League qualification season and the levels of the performance that dropped off from players going into the next season. The likes of we saw the likes of Miggy. It was a proper purple patch for that season, and then he reverted back to his normal level. And some of those players have now gone back to probably where the likes of Jacob Murphy, for example, have gone back to exactly what they are. They're good players. They're not at that level.
Yeah, this goes back though, Mark. This goes back. Now, Eddie Howe's protected by the force field of the Carabao Cup, as Brian's talking about there. The local journalists have this infatuation that they don't want to criticise him because of their own personal, benefits that they have with a close relationship to him. The mainstream media don't attack him either because the same as the England manager in waiting. So I think he's kind of off limits in that regard. So the issue that we have here, right, a lot of these players have been here for 4 years. And when we signed them, they were in their 30s then. Father Time has caught up on these lads. It doesn't matter how many Carabao Cups you win, you cannot stop Father Time catching up on you. Trippier should not be in a position where he's starting games week on, week out at 35 years old. He shouldn't. Fabian Schär, Dan Burn the same. Jamal Lascelles was 32, hadn't played for 2 years. We've knocked back 20 million for Joe Willock in a transfer window, then complain we've got no money to buy anybody. These things need to be challenged. They're not being challenged by the mainstream media because they're not impartial. And that's where I have my problem with the manager. He talks about the squad getting burnt out and all that. He won't rotate. He won't play young players. Even when we're 3-0 up against PSV, which you said, Mark, after that game, he didn't take off Lewis Hall for 20 minutes and give him a rest and put Alex Murphy on. He didn't do that.
That was criminal.
Exactly. He's letting these players down by doing things like that. The Alexander Isak thing, yes, was a nightmare. But did Eddie Howe really think that he had this kind of spell over a player whose head was already turned to the exit door, that he could convince him to stay? And that's why we fucked that whole transfer up over the summer. But again, he's absolved of it because Alexander Isak's the villain, which, I kind of understand in a weird way. But if he did tell us he wanted to fuck off, like Tonal looks like he's already done, we're not learning our lessons from that. We're going down the same rabbit hole with Tonali right now. The kid's starting games. He couldn't give a fuck. He won't run after anybody. He won't chase anybody. He looks like he can't be asked to be there. And that has to go back to the manager. Grow a pair of balls and just drop him and play Ramsey. I don't know what your take is on that, Brian, but I've said a lot there. But that's my problem with the manager, I think, is this absolving he gets of these points, It drives me mad.
As much as I'll never obviously agree with what Isak did, or any player who refuses to play for when they're under contract, what I will say is, if you look at top managers like Pep Guardiola, when a player tells him, I want away, they're as good as gone. He doesn't hang on to them because he understands the mentality of the squad. You only want players there who really want to be there. And the naivety of Newcastle in the last few years, not just in holding on to players who are clearly not good enough for far too long, or getting a lot older, and not blooding in players. Like now, this people are now acknowledging we've got the under-18s England captain in our right back position who has not had a sniff of game time so far, whereas in all of these games, we could have been blooding him in. We could have been getting him ready. Kieran Trippier could have been schooling him to take over from that position to some degree. And now it's a case of, if you want to play the kid now, he's coming in cold. He's had no experience in the Premier League whatsoever. And that was a great opportunity for Eddie Howe to do that. And Eddie Howe, when it comes to young players, I think is one of the worst managers, if not the worst. He must be the worst manager in the Premier League for bringing on young players, because he's so, and it comes back to his lack of bravery. I think when you put in a player with lack of experience, it's worrying, it's nervy. Will they, won't they? And there's opportunities to do that when you're 3-0 up. But still, he's such a safety first guy in the way he plays everything. He's more scared to lose than he is determined to win. And I think that's a big problem for Eddie. But yeah, when it comes to players not wanting to be there, like Sandro Tonali, I think we learn from the past mistakes, and mistakes that should never have been made in the first place, especially when you've got Ekitike on a plate and Liverpool are going, if you get him, we'll take Isak. And we thought naively we could keep them both or get Ekitike and then hold Liverpool to ransom or whatever. We fucked that up terribly. So we got to learn from that. And if Sandro wants away, especially with how he's playing this season, I say we gift wrap him and get the best price for him.
I don't disagree. I mean, just moving it slightly, Mark, with these kind of sensationalist journalism that's been going out there at the minute. So there was an article that went out. Again, I'm not going to name the journalist. We all know who it is. But they said, careful, I think it was militant fans we were called, in terms of, try to talk about a little bit of hyperbole. I see hyperbole from that side of the argument. I don't see hyperbole from people trying to talk that maybe the manager's reached the end of his road. I see people trying to be sensible and have conversations. And the other side is where the hyperbole is coming from. But he gave two examples, this journalist. He talked about how the fans shoved Bobby Robson out and Kevin Keegan out. I'm going to let you cover the Keegan thing, Mark, because what you pulled out was hilarious and how quickly you found it as well. But the Sir Bobby Robson thing, obviously I'm old enough to remember Sir Bobby Robson, as we all are on the stream here. And Sir Bobby Robson wasn't just shoved out by the fans. The fans did contribute. The fans did turn them a little bit, right? But the local journalist also questioned his tactics and his formations, talked about whether he should have been moved upstairs. There was talk in the background of Alan Shearer wanting to get in the management. And I think Douglas Hall was pushing for that. But let's not forget the brat pack of Kieran Dyer, who refused to play in positions for Bobby Robson, Craig Bellamy as well. So for that journalist to throw that out at the fans as if they're blaming the fans for turning on them. And back then as well, there was no YouTube. There wasn't any YouTube to pin that on. I think even
how strong was fan power back then compared to now, where we really literally have a voice. And also, when you talk about hyperbole, like you're accusing, and make this absolutely clear, he's accusing fans who are now wanting a manager out who's had the most insane amount of money, in the history of the club by a mile, in terms of, when you compare it to what other clubs have been spending. It is unbelievable to see Newcastle spending these amounts of money. And we're sitting in the exact same position that Steve Bruce left us when we were on a shoestring budget. And you're now comparing that to when Sir Bobby Robson was in a top 5 position, in 3 years running was in a top 5 position. It is not even remotely the same. But I'll let you talk about Kevin Keegan.
Well, Bobby was pushing for titles year on year as well, Brian. We were constantly in the title picture.
It's nothing Bobby like that. And you're accusing me of something that you can't say for a fact that these exact fans were the ones who did that thing. Like that's said it quite a lot on social media. Oh, I've had it said to me, you would have wanted Sir Bobby Robson out. I'm like, do you know how much I worshipped Sir Bobby Robson? You don't even have a clue what you're talking about. But yeah.
But that's what this side of the argument is doing, and it's not healthy for anybody. We're all Newcastle fans at the end of the day. I sat and spoke to a lad today who was HOWE'D, right, and we had a real sensible conversation over a coffee. We didn't kick off for each other. He made his point, I made my point, and we said, right, that's fine. You know what I mean? We moved on, had a crack about something else shortly afterwards because I think we were both sick of talking about it at that point.
What's the difference, though? What's the difference? The difference is the people who are out are talking about what we're seeing on the pitch now.
Yes.
The people who are how in are talking about Sir Bobby Robson. They're talking about what happened last year. They're not talking about what's happening right now, because you can't. There's nothing about the performances that we are seeing now that are defensible. And that's the problem with why you have to pull from things like Sir Bobby Robson, which, might I remind people, was 20 fucking years ago. Like if you're bringing up something that happened 20 years ago, your argument is shit. Right? It's nothing to do with Eddie Howe. It's nothing to do with the version of Newcastle that we're looking at now and the new fans that we've got now. It's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. So that's what gets me annoyed. That's the gaslighting that we're sort of dealing with here, which is why, and then bringing up Kevin Keegan, which was what, 30 years ago?
Yep.
Come on.
Sadly, I'm old enough to remember both. But the Keegan thing, Mark, passing to you. So the accusation was that these fans pushed Keegan out as well. And tell me how long it took you to research that. Not to be accurate. Why did Kevin Keegan leave again?
It was literally, I mean, it takes Google. I mean, this is where we've got to now, isn't it? You just go, why? And it comes straight up and you go, his quote, it's literally from Keegan's autobiography that says, for the first time, I was not enjoying the job. I no longer had the same enthusiasm going to training that I must clarify had nothing to do with the players. It was because the people at the top of the club were prepared to float Newcastle on the stock market, and as a rift grew behind the scenes, it started to feel as if they were no longer all on the same wavelength. It's absolutely nothing to do with fan power. It was completely the way
the fans were shocked.
Decision.
From memory, and I was, what, 9 years old? We were like, holy shit, what the hell just happened? Yeah. And actually, it's been a staple of Kevin Keegan's managerial career because he did the same thing with England. So to pin that on the fans, it just shows how disingenuous some of these journalists are, and they're not worth the fucking wage that they're paid to write that shit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was really inflammatory. And like I say, it's like insulting people's intelligence. Whether you're a match goer or not, you shouldn't swig that Kool-Aid down in one shot. You should look into that. And it took Mark 12 seconds to Google that and get the direct quotes from the man himself, Kevin Keegan, who obviously we all wish well as well with what he's going through.
Absolutely.
Got to say that. But I mean, and Kevin Keegan needs his name dragged into this shit as well, by the way, with everything he's going through. Like,
but that just shows how they're clutching at straws, doesn't it? That's when when your argument's so weak that you're bringing up things that happened 20, 30 years ago because you can't talk about what's happening on the pitch. You can't point to anything that's happening on the pitch and go, this is why Eddie Howe is the man for. And I don't get me wrong, I understand why people might go to last year and say, well, he won World Cup, you got won the Champions League. That's a fine argument if you want to make that. I disagree. That's okay. But when you're pulling from 20, 30 years ago, it's embarrassing, man.
Yeah. I mean, the counter argument, Mark, I think Brian made this in his video as well. The counter argument of last year, right, is for the majority of last year, we did play some really rotten games. We weren't great. And there was one defining factor that turned those games into wins, and it was Alexander Isak's brilliance. Yeah. Whether you want to admit that or not. How many times last season, Mark, did Alexander Isak do something to pull us out of the mire when we just looked like we were struggling, you know? And has everyone just forgot that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a stat for you for that. I really would, but I probably have somewhere in the background. I've one of the spreadsheets that I have. Look, it's absolutely true. He is a world-class footballer, and having that world-class footballer in that position meant that it papered over an awful lot of the cracks that were still there. It meant that games that we've seen this year that have ended in draws or defeats would have been turned around and turned into a draw from a defeat or a win from a draw, even more, because
exactly
if you get that goal back, if you get back into a game like that, suddenly the momentum shift then and to feed that player and the whole point of that side was to just feed Alex, because he could do the things that no other player on the field could do.
I think we've lost that, lads. I think we've lost that, you know.
We have.
I think there was a period of time when Nick Voltemorda looked like he was becoming the focal point, the main man. And I feel like we weren't giving him anywhere near enough service, but he was scoring with every shot he took almost. So it kind of didn't matter, but it wasn't sustainable. And there needed to be a realization from the manager of, we need to create more chances from him. How do I do this? And to just try and figure that out. And in the meantime, we had journalists saying, Nick Voltemorda is the problem. Nick Voltemorda is the problem. And they completely seem to forget the fact that after the cup final, when Alexander Isak went through a terrible run of form, he wasn't scoring at all because we weren't creating chances for him either, really. But also he wasn't 100%. And at that point, no one was saying Alexander Isak is the problem. Alexander Isak is the problem. The reality was the system was the problem. Eddie Howe was the problem. The lack of creativity in this side has been the problem for a lot longer than just this season. It's easy when a new player comes in to go, he's at fault. And I think, becoming a journalist might make you very good at writing about football. It doesn't necessarily make you good at understanding football and understanding what's happening in a game. And I think Nick Voldemort got scapegoated and has been scapegoated a lot, especially for a 23-year-old kid whose first season in the Premier League. His goals have probably kept us up this season and is definitely not being used in the right way or in the way that he was used for Stuttgart, which I went back and I've looked at quite a lot to understand like what has actually gone wrong here. And honestly, a lot. Like it's as if they've not looked at anything that he was doing well in Germany, by the way, because when you watch the way they play with him, it's the complete opposite of what Eddie's done. Eddie's using him as a Chris Wood, Duncan Ferguson type. He's nothing like that. And it's like, no wonder he's struggling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Mark, on the fan situation at the minute, and we had a bit. I mean, Brian gets probably way more than we do. He's been doing this long enough now, and he's probably a lot more thicker skin to it than we are, mind you. But I mean, these journalists they're being so reckless. Some of them in particular. I'm not going to lambast them all with it, but some of them in particular are being so reckless. I mean, I was listening to a really prominent Newcastle podcast the other day. There was fighting in the East Stand. Two blokes fighting each other, physically fighting each other.
I've seen that podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And that is not a good environment, right, for the fan base to be in, whether they're in an armchair, whether they're in the stadium, right? Yeah. When people are fighting each other. Now, these kind of journalists, Mark, throwing kind of petrol on the flames, right? They're not helping the situation, are they? I mean, social media is vile at the best of times, but these people putting these things out there, I mean, it's reckless, man, isn't it? Surely. I mean, have a word with yourself. Calm down a bit.
But you know what it does do? Drives their revenues.
And that's
why it comes down to is they will fan the flames of discontent.
The same thing they're accusing YouTubers for, by the way. Sorry, the same thing they're accusing YouTubers for. Okay, just to get that right. Just to get that right. Yeah.
So there is a split. There has been for a little while. There are those that can see problems on the field. There are those that are blindly loyal to Eddie, and there are some in the middle. But the extreme elements and the journalists are quite happy to call the extreme elements out, and it just fans the flames and gets people against each other, and it drives the clicks, it drives the revenues for their employers, it drives money into their pocket. So it can be a reckless thing. You're absolutely right, but it's something that is just completely expected.
Just for context as well. It was the guy who was booing who was attacked by the guy who wasn't happy that he was booing.
Yes.
So, just so we understand that the side that took the violent side first, because I think that's important. And I do feel like, don't get me wrong, that no side is clean here. In that, no. I think I really understand them in the middle side because it's like your heart versus your head sort of thing. Like, I get that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the ones who are like, how dare you say that Eddie Howe should be sacked? I think they're the more aggressive of the two sides of Howe in versus Howe out. They're the ones who are getting really like carried away with telling people that they can't even debate whether Eddie Howe's the right man for the job when he's clearly being outperformed, and I've went through this in my video, by countless sides on less of a budget, like teams with players that you would just never expect to be able to compete with the amount of internationals that we've got. The facts are there, and it's like the way people are able to dig their head in the sand is really baffling here.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a top 6 wage bill, and we're looking like a bottom 6 side. And that, I don't care how positive you are, and if you've got Eddie Howe tattooed on your left arse cheek, that is facts. That is the truth.
Our away record is bottom 3. That's how, right now.
if anybody's we're going to get into Spurs in a second. If anyone's confident of us even going to a shitty Spurs side and getting out of there with a comfortable win, then wow. I mean, give me whatever you're drinking, because that is some quality confidence juice right there. But it is turning really, really nasty. And I don't like the way that they're pointing all the blame. It's such a lazy argument. Oh, do you know who it is? It's the people who aren't here. That's what it is. It's them lot. It's them lot. You know, what it looks like from these journalists, Mark, you touched on there before. What it looks like from these journalists is that they're swimming against the tide of the changing evolution of media. You know, Brian, you've been in this for a long, long time. You and Mark Goldbridge, to be fair to you two have been on this wave a lot longer than anybody, right? And the way that media has changed, the way that YouTube has become such a reachable mode of communication in terms of news stories and media and things like that. This reeks of a journalist who doesn't want this to happen, and he's just pointing the finger of blame, Mark, at the people that he thinks are potentially going to be the go-to news source when he gets forgotten about.
You wouldn't either. If you have a great relationship with a manager who is also always going to give you certain insights, give you a bit of his time, give you a bit extra, you have that. You want to cultivate that. You want to keep a hold of that, and you want to make sure that you keep getting that, because then you can get your articles out, then you can get the clicks. The last thing you want to have to do after 4 years of building a relationship with a Newcastle manager is start again with someone you don't know. You're going to back him to the hill, especially if he's been nice with you. And Eddie's been very clever, and I give him credit for this, in getting the media on side after Steve Bruce was a disaster. How's the bacon, did you say? Like it was a nightmare. So I think Eddie did really well, but he's got them so on side that they're now like telling us, ironically, that black is white, and we're like, well, we're watching these matches, you know. Like, do you not think we say this? So yeah, I think there's a lot of people know where their bread's buttered, mate, and they're not being fully genuine in what they're saying is happening right now.
Ironically, Mark, this is the same journalist. Again, if you go on Google, this takes you seconds as well. The same journalist who called, was it the Rafa Benitez cult when people were criticizing Steve Bruce, who went on a 27-game winless run? This was the same journalist who said that, and I quote, Newcastle fans are living in the past, is what he said about the Rafa Benitez comparisons when they weren't having Steve Bruce. But he's okay to use that when he wants to prove that point, but not when he wants people to not criticize the current manager.
I just want to say something, lads, because I wasn't really I wasn't really fully aware of this geezer, and nothing against him. Like, whatever, you get your money, you're winding people up for money. Many have done it before. It's not original. But when someone in the comments went, he was the guy who defended Steve Bruce, I went, all right, then I'm not going to pay attention, because if you defended Steve Bruce in that that horror run, and you shamed fans for wanting Steve Bruce out, your opinion is invalid for me. Like, you've got no one should pay attention to the fucking word that you say after that.
Absolutely. You know Mark, what was your take on that again?
I can't top that, really. Do you know what I mean?
Sorry, mate, I couldn't fucking help it. It just does me.
No, I could just see him turning up there as I was saying. I could just see the blood boiling.
Honestly,
a little bit as I was saying.
I'm having a little bit of whiskey. I got it for my birthday. I'm just in the right frame of mind.
Bottle, sorry, it looks very nice. It looks very nice.
I'm fully on the coffee. I need that today. It's I mean. It's when you're talking about that before, and going back to the cult of Rafa. I mean, the level of hypocrisy from him is unreal. When you're accused of living in the past at that point, but yet there's a vast, huge number that
quit living in the past. And about Bobby Robson and Kevin Keegan.
Yeah, exactly right.
Bullshitting bastard.
It's mental.
Honestly, it's insane, and I kind of agree with you, Brian. Is that if you gonna have that line, and it's purely it's the talk sport kind of mentality of I'm gonna say it purely for the reaction, and it's kind of the same, doing exactly the same now. It should get absolutely no sort of credence from any of us.
Yeah. I think that's when no one really gives two shits about what you've got to say, this is the last resort. Like, I've seen that before, you know what I mean? He's like, right, well, I've got to find a way to be relevant then, so let's go against the grain and protect Eddie.
Absolutely. Well, just a comment there from Insanity. I think he's talking about you, Brian. He said, Chris and Mark, you're legends, but I've never been able to say this to the lad himself. I've been watching you since 2013, lad, and you are a legend. From listening to Joe Kinnear, Talk Sport, to the FPR, to the days, to now.
Aye, nice one, mate. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Donation as well. Good man.
Exactly. We've had some lovely super chats today. Absolutely. But I suppose we might as well move on to Spurs, I think, Mark, because it's so easy to forget we've got a game to play here because the fan base maybe at each other's throats, really, and the journalists are pouring petrol on the flames. I mean, I haven't watched it. I like some of the journalists. I've said that before, and I watch that. I normally look at that content. It's my go-to Newcastle content. I watched the Geordie journos. I haven't watched the other lads, and we've had some of them on the channel. And I think one of the comments there said his video was quite impartial. He's such a lovely bloke, but I can't bring myself to watch him because I just don't feel as balanced in the argument. So I'm going to move on from that one. But the Spurs game themselves, Mark. I mean, there was a little teaser about Anthony Gordon possibly being fit and possibly Lewis Miley being fit. I'm more excited about Lewis Miley being fit, if I'm brutally honest with you, than Anthony Gordon, the way he's played this season. But in terms of Spurs, we'll get Brian's take on this in a minute. I mean, Spurs are having a rubbish season as well. Not very good at all. Christian Romero, despite Thomas Frank thinking he doesn't get sent off a lot, had his 6th red card in his first career the other night. So he's suspended. Spurs haven't had a great season. They are very Spursy. Newcastle's away form is rubbish. I mean, we'll look at the lineup in a second, but your gut feeling on this, Mark? Mark's fell over there. His camera's gone off.
Let me add a stat in while you. I think Spurs'
Mark's
home
trying to
form.
Pick himself back up. There he goes.
Spurs' home form, I think, is 17th worst in the league, something like that. And Newcastle's away form is like 16th worst in the league. So This is like battle of the baddest. Like, who is the worst?
Clash of the trash.
Who's the worst away and who's the worst at home? We'll find out.
Wow, it's got 0-0 written all over this, hasn't it? Really, to be fair, you can just.
But there's loads of goals. That's the one thing. There's apparently 61
true.
Games. Everyone's had a goal in it, so there is goals. Yeah,
there will be goals in it. So, Mark, now you've finished doing somersaults in your kitchen there. What do you think about this game? Because we missed a chance to do the preview because there's so many games. We ran out of time. The old day job getting away. What's your take on the game? What are you thinking, gut feeling wise? It's a must-win game for Newcastle and a must-win game for Spurs, as Brian's just said there. What do you think in this game, mate? What's your gut feel? I know you love to sit on the fence, but jump off of it, will you? We need a prediction here, mate. Come on.
Well, this is a game where Newcastle and I'm going to argue against some of the stats that have been put out. Is that Newcastle have one win in 8? It's 1 win in 9 because the Bournemouth one doesn't count.
Yeah,
because the FA Cup game ended in a draw. True. It was the penalties that was the win. And I pissed on somebody's parade by pointing that out the other day. Spurs was it 3 wins in 12, and 2 of those have been in Europe. Brilliant results in Europe, but their only other win was against Palace away, and their home form has been awful. And you think for the stadium that they've built to be a palace for them, they've just been shocking. So I think they've only got 2 wins at home all season. And that's just, it's so poor. But you're right, Newcastle's away record is just such I mean, it's dire. And it's not just the results, it's the performances away from home as well. I mean, it could end up 6-6 the way that it's going. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's one of those where they're missing Romero, they're missing Udogie for much longer now. I'd be tempted to say Newcastle will win, but there's that Solanke looks a little bit better. He's looked a little bit more in form, so he could be the difference in that. Weirdly, given the run of results, I kind of think Newcastle will scrape this as a win. That's me. I'm not sitting on the fence for once.
No, you're not sitting on the fence. But Brian, what do you think, mate, on the game?
You mentioned Crystal Palace before. I think of Crystal Palace's season of how the manager basically went, yeah, I'm off. Halfway through the season. The Mateta, main striker, yeah, I'm off. Gehi, club captain, yeah, I'm off. To me, especially when we played them, I thought yous have had a fucking shit season, yous. And then I look at the table, they're 1 point behind us. I'm like, fucking hell. Like, this is a Crystal Palace side who, obviously, I actually have been really impressed with them the last few years. But as a club, they're not bulletproof, right? Like, things like that are going to impact them. And the fact that it's only impact them to the point where they're only 1 point behind us, and we've got the stable manager, and we spent all this money, and yet they've got such instability, and yet they're only 1 point behind us. That shook me. So for Spurs, I really think that this is two really crap clubs right now, crap squads with a lot of the same problems, lack of consistency. Yeah, there's a few players who can play it in Europe where teams play against you wide open, but we both struggle against that, like, dogged Premier League shit that we're coming up against where teams play a low block, physical. And Newcastle's record is basically either really bad or really good in these games from what I've seen. So I'm hoping it's good. I think a lot of this depends on Eddie right now giving people confidence. I think that there's a huge lack of confidence. For example, when Elanga scores that goal against Man City, that for me should have been an automatic start in the next game, and giving him that back and going, right, son, you're man of the match in that game. Yeah, you might not. It was a shocking fucking performance from him. Tell him, arm round the shoulder, encourage him, let him know you really have proven something here. And since those, and I heard through the grapevine that the fans clapping him in that moment, it did something, you know. And since then, he has been performing better, and it gave him that bit of that support, bit of that belief. There's not a lot of that going when you've got, like, Eddie going, well, Nick Voltemorda needs to figure a way out of this himself. Like, I'm like, well, Elanga got claps the other week, so where's that for Voltemorda? I'm not sure the psychological side of the game right now is great inside the locker room. But for me, that was a great example of Elanga getting dropped after he scores a goal. Imagine what he must have been thinking when he looked at that team sheet. Fuck's sake, man. You know? And I think Eddie needs to have a bit of a private meeting with some players and go, you are my guy, right? No matter what happens, you're going to start. He needs to pick who he's going to be as main men, because you can see game to game, no one can go into each squad now feeling like, I am Eddie's guy. Like, it's, you dropped you one little mistake. He's so unsure of himself. He's so second guessing himself. And the striker situation is a great example of that, when Voltemorda scores 2 against Chelsea, gets played in complete isolation against Man United, and then he's dropped for multiple games after that. One bad game where the whole side was terrible, and he never really recovered his place from that moment. It was in and out, and a lot of out. Wissa started more games since then, and Wissa has done so much less in that time than what Voltemorda did when he was the main man. I'm like, can you just tell him, Harvey Barnes, Wissa, you whatever, whoever it is, just pick a 3. I don't give a fuck, really, as long as you nail your colours to the mast. Because right now, I think if Eddie Howe keeps dropping them, starting them, taking them out and showing no faith in them, there is no way that these players are going to play with a level of confidence that we have seen in previous seasons. And that's one of the main issues with this side for me.
Yeah. And what do you think for score, Brian? Push you for a score?
2-2.
That's exactly what I think. I think it's going to be 2-2 as well. I mean, you know, all the noise aside, right? Whether you're Eddie Howe in or you're Eddie Howe out, as I said before, fans and YouTube channels sure as shit don't get managers sacked. Players do. And players need to turn up for managers. And if these lads are playing for this manager, they're going to have to show it on Tuesday night. They cannot go down to Spurs and put in a performance like they did in the first half against City, like they did in the Brentford game, with wayward passing, lackluster running, a lack of a press. If they don't go in that game and go hell for leather against a really shaky Spurs, where their manager's under probably as much pressure as we are, I do laugh because I've seen expressions. I watch him. I think it's hilarious. He says sack him now every video. And I don't know. He gets any shit up the Spurs fans. I think they think he's brilliant. But, you know, this guy's under loads of pressure. And if these lads want to keep this lad in a job, this guy in a job, then they've got to do it.
We'll see it, though. By the way, just to piggyback off that, we're now going to see, because Eddie Howe was never, as we all know, given a press conference like he did the other day where he was completely beaten. He looked like a broken man and he took all responsibility. And, Kieran Trippier comes out and says, it's not the manager, it's on the players, whatever. This is the point where every player in that locker room knows he's headed for the sack if we keep doing this. Now it becomes a choice. So if they go out and they don't if they give hell for leather and we get a bit unlucky, whatever, but we see it on the pitch that they're giving everything, then you go, all right, you've still got the players then. I've already seen enough, in my opinion, that he hasn't got the players completely. I've seen plenty of opportunities for them to track back, to dig in, and I don't think they are. But this is going to be really obvious if they don't do it in this game.
Yeah, I mean, we need fighters in this game. Mark and I were talking about this before. Come on, right? Would you start Tonali in this game, Brian, after what you've seen from Sandro Tonali? All the noise about him leaving. Would you start Tonali really in this game?
If we had every person fit, no. It would be Joelinton, Miley and Bruno for me. I wouldn't. I think the reputation Tonali's got, considering how bad he is at keeping the ball, is outrageous, really. I wouldn't, but I think he will because he runs a lot, and we all know Eddie loves runners. And I think that he's going to go 5 at the back. When he says back to basics, that means we got to play like we're struggling against relegation. We got to play like we're fighting for our lives, and we're not going to be attacking and adventurous. So I think he's going to go 5 at the back, and because of that, he's going to think, I need legs in midfield. Tonali's playing.
Yeah, just as a comment there, Mark, poor Joel's been getting a hard time in the comments there by some people, right? And he did say any criticism for the owners, right? I'm just going to wade in here, right? Because you know what, Joe? I will criticize the owners a little bit, right? You can't have too much of a go at them because, as Brian said in his video, they gave the manager 250 million quid this summer, right? But have the fuck things up upstairs. Absolutely. This whole thing has gone to shit since the Amanda Staveley and Murdad disappeared from the whole situation in the background. The sporting director thing hasn't quite worked out either. The scouting whole system hasn't worked out either. The lack of commercial revenue coming in has also been a problem. So I will criticize the owners there, but another caveat of that as well is, yes, the owners can be to blame for that and the kind of absentness of the owners, right? But if they're going to the manager saying, right, okay, we need to rotate the squad, and he wants to keep a hold of all these 30-odd-year-old players, and you're selling quality young players like Anderson and Minter, that ain't good on Eddie Howe if he's the man who's making that decision. So, there's enough blame to be spread around the whole hierarchy of the football club as well as the manager. So I'll give you a little bit of that, Joe, if that helps you with your comment there, mate. Any thoughts on that, guys? Yeah.
What, you anything to say on that, Mark?
Well, when you touch on the ownership, it was the comment. I muddle my words up there. You touch on kind of the ownership, and I go back to the comments from Hopkinson last week about the activity in the transfer window, and I'll stay more recent than going back to Anderson and Minty, and I agree that we talked about those two until we're blue in the face.
More questions need asked about that, by the way. More questions need asked about that.
But for me, the clearest issue into the January transfer window for the whole club, and it down to Eddie and it's down to the others as well, is defender availability. Because if you look at the percentages of the minutes those defenders have been available, only Hall and Chow have been available for over 80% of the minutes this season. Botman's just below it, like 77%. Byrne and Shaw have only been available for about 69% of the minutes. Trippier the same. Tino only 49%. I'm ignoring Kraft and Lascelles because they're just one's gone and the other one's injured now as well, but never used anyway.
Yeah.
So
remember, Lascelles was injured. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Well, apparently so.
I'm
choosing straight away, but it's still
never
injured.
Yeah. Just saying, never injured.
Yeah.
But that's the stat I've got. So we'll park that one. But for those main defenders, that the clearest thing of that is just there needed to be depth in there. Mm. And you talked about it earlier, Brian, in terms of bringing in like Shahar into games. I've seen the comments in the chat as well about bringing him in for games where there is the PSV game, for example, 3-0 up, bring him on, give him minutes. The Liverpool game, I guess when it's gone, bring him on, give him some minutes against some of the very best. The Bradford game earlier in the season, there's absolutely no reason to have played as many first-team starters as was possible. No disrespect to Bradford. There was absolutely no reason in that game to have played them. There's probably no reason to have played as many starters as were played against Bournemouth in the FA Cup either. And probably at the weekend too. I mean, almost you wanted to bring in some of those players into that game just to kind of give everybody a rest. But that's the key for me with that is those defenders haven't been available. All this activity that was going on in January, what were they looking at? Why in the entire world? You cannot tell me in the entire world you haven't found players that would have been able to come in, even for 6 months, to have done a job to boost that squad, to come in and play that cup game, to come in and take minutes off the bench and things. I know he's not brilliant, but somebody like Disasi, who was available on loan, could have come in and filled the spot. He would have
go to West Ham.
Yeah,
Did he?
I agree.
West Ham?
He's gone to West Ham.
Yeah,
he's not great, I admit, but he would give you depth off the bench. So Eddie Howe would have that player to be able to come on and play right back or come in and play centre back if needed. There just isn't that depth.
They talk about the value, though, don't they, mate? It's all about, there's no value in January. And I'm like, do you think you got good value in the summer? Is that what you're trying to tell us? Like, it was brilliant value in the summer, wasn't it? Fantastic. When there's no good value in the summer either. That's the one thing that we've... And if you look at the signings that we've made in the past January windows, Bruno was one of them. Anthony Gordon, although he's been crap for the last year or so, had a good impact. And there was a few more as well. Like, it's not like we've never had a good January transfer signing. And if they're telling us that when we started the transfer window, we were looking at I think it was a fullback and a centre-back was what we were interested in, to not even be able to find one of those guys available, it just makes me think, I've not got a lot of faith in you then. Because surely there was something.
I mean, I just don't understand the recklessness of that, though, because they were looking for that before the injuries, and then the injuries happened, and then they weren't looking for that.
That is mental, isn't it? Dan Burns coming back, he'll be fine. Just stick him at left back.
But that's the concern. Is it because Lewis Miley did so well at right back? They went, we don't need a right back. We'll just stick Lewis Miley there. And then Dan Burns
got injured.
And then he got injured. But it is.
But why did he get injured? He got injured because he just ran into the ground because there was no rotation. And earlier this season, I remember a lot of YouTubers, Geordie YouTubers, were saying, we should be rotating a bit more than what we are, shouldn't we? And then Eddie doesn't rotate, same team all the time. And then he only starts rotating when people are dropping like flies. And then they've got players that are coming in from the cold, like a Joe Willock. Right, he had a nice little performance against PSG. What's he done since then? It's not the way top managers rotate a squad. It's a lot more in and out, a lot more fluid. And I'm not saying you don't have your favourites, but there was a lot of players who didn't get a sniff. And like Shahar, the young right back, he could have been blooded in plenty by now.
Absolutely. Just before you come in there, Mark, as well, I think David's hit the nail on the head right here, right? All of the noise that's going on at the minute now, all of the, two sides go to war, journalists fueling it with petrol and all that, that's no purer word than that. He hates feeling so deflated even before games begun. He just wants to enjoy the games again. We're all Newcastle United fans. We just want to enjoy what we're watching. We want to see positive results. We don't want Eddie Howe to struggle. We don't want the lads to struggle. We want wins. We want to see good football. Even if the lads were trying and the football was good and they were just narrowly missing out, people wouldn't feel as pissed off as they are, but we're not seeing any of that. So I just wanted to pull it. I think David's bang on there.
I really want to agree with that, because I was thinking that earlier on about the old Eddie Howe football that was more Klopp-esque rather than the big Sam Allardyce football.
Brilliant.
The big Sam Allardyce football that we're being subjected to right now. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are not, when these journals are talking about it, and some fans, it's like, are you saying this is good football? And that was why on shout out to the Toon Review lads, on the day before they did a charity stream before the Brentford game, and I went, they're better than us.
Yeah, I was on it.
I went, they're better than us, and I think even though they beat us earlier this season, a lot of Newcastle fans, we have a rite of passage of we're a bigger club, we spent all this money, I'm like, no. I watched them pass the ball around against Chelsea in a way that we've not passed the ball around for years, right? And I knew they were a better footballing side than us, and they're not the only one. Most sides in the Premier League are like that right now. But I believe that we were going to be beaten, and it's not even the losing that's bothering me. It's the shit football and losing. Like, if you're playing decent football and you're like, yeah, we win some, we lose some, but it's actually pretty nice on the eye, and I can see where this is going, it gives you a bit of hope. This is dog shit. There's no hope. There's none. No, even if we win against Spurs, lads, I don't care. Eddie needs to go for me, because until he completely understands that athletes don't break down low blocks, we're never going to go anywhere with Eddie, in my opinion. And that's going to take like an epiphany, the likes of which I don't believe we're going to see from him.
Yeah, but I think the end of the season we'll probably see where that's going to go, I think. But Mark, I suppose just to kind of finish this off, really, Brian's kind of said it there that he thinks Eddie needs to go. I know you're the resident fence sitter, but do you see? I mean, I've said this for a long time now, and I'm not going to change my opinion. As I said the other day, I maybe went a bit mad when I called him a PE teacher. I know Brian thought it was quite funny, to be fair, at the time, but, as did a few others. But, I did address that. I'm not going to go through that again. But I don't see from this manager, I don't see a plan. And because we didn't add in the squad, there's nobody coming in to refresh or encourage competition or anything like that. So these players are just constantly getting staler and staler. Do you see this manager turning this round and getting us a European finish? Because I don't. I think Brian's probably the same. I don't see European football at the end of this season. And what does that mean for Eddie Howe come the end of the season?
I think first, I don't think he goes anywhere until the summer.
No, I don't think so. No.
You're absolutely right in the staleness that's there, and I can't see that epiphany. Brian, you said that right. I can't see his way out unless he completely changes tacks now, and we've not seen any evidence to suggest that will happen. And the performances the month that's coming up is horrendous.
Awful.
Awful. And really, some of the games that we've just witnessed, those are the ones those are the points that you have to get on the board because of the next games that are coming up, and they haven't. I don't see a way.
Just those games while you're talking. Sorry, mate. So Spurs tomorrow away, Villa in the FA Cup away, who are third in the league and considerably better than us. Then we're off to Qarabag away in the Champions League. Then we've got Manchester City away at the Etihad, who battered us easily. Then it's the return leg of Qarabag. Then we've got Everton and Man United at home, who are both picking up form. That is honking. That's a honking fixture list for a team devoid of confidence.
Away at Chelsea, and then the big one,
and then the Mackhams.
God, I'm dreading that one. That's do you know what? That's the one I'm really dreading, because I think we're there for the taking for them bastards.
But they'll be licking their chops. I watched them against Arsenal the other day, right? I know they got beat 3-0, right? But even the Arsenal players said Sunderland put a really good fight up, and I thought they were really good. I thought they were adventurous, they were brave, they were pressing, they were trying, and I thought that team will beat us. Looking at them, and unless we pick up massively before then, which is a big if.
On the subject that you're on about in terms of how long does Eddie get, my only worry, and it's funny because a lot of Newcastle fans will be hoping we keep Eddie into next season, and I understand why. I'm really worried that we waste more and more time out of this emotional loyalty that we've got to Eddie, because even here's the thing, even in his peak, Eddie was never going to take us to the next level because he doesn't understand how to keep possession. And if you look at all the best teams in the world, possession-based football is king, and he has no concept of that. It's running, it's chasing, it's hard work. Don't get me wrong, but the technical side of the game, I really don't think that is a speciality. So I want to get rid of him as soon as don't get me wrong. Give him the end of the season out of respect for the man, because I don't want him to. I don't want it to be like I'd rather they make it like an agreement where he walks with his head held high and we can all cheer him off in a sense. And I think we'd all like to have a nice ending to this as best as we can, even though it's not going to. But like, we need him gone in the summer, and I don't know if the club have the experience at board level, which Jamie Rubin, I think he's definitely worked hard to get some signings in. Apparently, when it all went tits in the summer, he was trying to bring in, doing the negotiations himself. Obviously, PIF aren't really, the football guys. They're kind of a global outfit. Eddie handpicked his own director of football. Is he going to have the balls to then put the bullet in Eddie's head?
Exactly,
Is he going to Godfather it? I don't know. So I'm worried that there's just going to be we'll give him another go. And it's like, if you're finishing below Sunderland, it shouldn't even be conversation. And yet I think this credit in the bank thing that a lot of fans are holding on to, it may, and the lack of experience in the Newcastle board may just make them dither too long.
Yeah, I've just left that comment up because massive credit to Tuna for having a laugh about this. People are saying Eddie Howe out of Mackham's lol. Just kidding. Get behind the lads. We have to. Do you know what? Well said, mate. Too many people are taking themselves way too seriously with the situation right now. If people don't want to support keeping the manager in the football club, it doesn't mean they're not Newcastle fans. It does not mean that. I think somebody's just saying that there. Geordie D saying these fans should be club first, not Eddie first. And I think that Geordie Journo said that as well, that there's people who seem to be fans of the manager before the club. And, you talked about this, Brian, in your video. I've talked about it before as well. Claudio Ranieri won the league for Leicester. No manager in the Premier League will ever eclipse that in terms of achievements. And he was gone less than a year later because that's what happens. Do you know what I mean?
Did Eddie Howe score the winner at Wembley? I don't remember that. Funny old thing. Like we turned on
Dan Burn.
I wish he did, to be fair, because I hate the bastard who did. But we turned on Alexander Isak because he stabbed us in the back, right? Now I'm not asking us to turn on Eddie, but the point I'm making is like loyalty can go to a certain point where and the betterment of the club has to be the priority. And I feel like when Eddie says, I don't know, or I've got to figure out what's going wrong here. And I'm like, it's 39 games into a season. And you've been trying the same thing over and over and over again. Give or take 1 or 2 games where you got desperate and threw the kitchen sink at it and didn't really have a plan. And then the very next day, you're like, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm the man for the job. I'm like, well, how can you say that with the complete confidence when you said yesterday, I've got to figure this out, meaning I don't know what is the problem. You can't be fully confident in it. You can't have no doubt in your mind. You've got to have doubt there. So bringing a full circle back to the start of the podcast, by the way, I'm a professional, lads. You get used to it when you're with me.
I was going to say, well, we're watching it at work, mate.
I just thought, I'm not saying he's lying, but I just think he's jaded himself up at the start of that press conference and thought, I've got to be brave. I've got to put on a positive front. And I don't blame him one bit for it. But I think that the Brentford performance was one of the major nails in the coffin. Not the first one. You could call that maybe Sunderland. But the Spurs one, if it's a similar situation, I think there's not long. I think there may be just a decision made at board level, like, all right, he's got to go at the end of the season, then hopefully.
Yeah, maybe he got one of them love letters from the journalist, Shirley Valentine's card. That might have cheered him up before he went
multiple.
into the press. Yeah, loads of red envelopes when he got in there.
Oh, God.
Right, what are you like for time, Brian? You got a little bit longer, mate? Or do you,
I'm good as long as you are.
Yeah, Mark, should we do a little bit of Out of Toon? This is the bit where we talk about... You'll be happy with this, Brian. This is non-Newcastle stuff. This is just normal football stuff. So we've jaded ourselves with Newcastle for long enough now. So we'll just pull up a couple of stories here in terms of non-Newcastle stuff. I think the first place to start, Mark, is probably the drama with a certain CR7. I think, mate. Have you still got that information there? The old CR7 in the background?
I've got I put the missing poster in because I thought it was hilarious. This was from rival club fans that had put these out. Apparently he's gone back.
He's gone back now, has he? I thought he was going into Miami, from what I heard. Yeah.
Well, the club apparently have sort of backed down a little bit and given him a little bit of what he wants. So when you're paying him £500,000 a week,
and the rest.
But it's that's the reported figure. It's just, But I thought that poster was hilarious. It was just doesn't matter where you are in the world, the wit of a football fan cannot be beaten.
Oh, you gotta love it. What's your take on the whole Ronaldo strop, Brian? Have you covered it on your channel yet, mate? The old Ronaldo strop?
I haven't. I'm aware that he refused to play and whatnot. And on the one hand, it's like prima donna footballer, but on the other hand, the value he's brought to that league is worth every penny, really, isn't it? Like,
is he too big for the league? Is he almost too big for that league? Has he got to that point now where he's that big of a player that can't control him?
I think he was too big for the league the second he walked in, and he was going to be too big for the league till the day he walks out. Like it's who he is. He is giving them such a spotlight, and the impact that he has made on the Saudi league will be felt like forever. I've been to the stadiums in Saudi. I've seen it. Like I've been inside the stadium that he plays in. Unbelievable, by the way. Like it just mind-blowing, some of the stuff that they've got. Air conditioning in the stadium, like massive air conditioners coming down from the ceiling. It's like
no good in my hair, Brian. No good in my whiskey hair.
Mate, this cue ball over here. But no, I think he's been worth his weight in gold to that lot, and they should keep him for the to have the 1,000th goal. Like it's going to be a big deal, right? Because Pele counted the ones and he's back on, but he's going to be able to say, I did it all. I did it all in front of cameras, right? So, like, it's going to be a big deal. You want it in your league. So, like, you got to keep him on for that. And he must know that that's a bit of leverage for them, like that social media moment.
Absolutely. The world will be watching. But, I mean, from the whole, the superstardom of Cristiano Ronaldo, I quite like it when lower league football brings you back down to earth. I don't know if you saw this on social media. We've come off X because of everything that went on. But there was an absolutely brilliant post that came up from, was it Bristol City, Mark, if you've got that there? So Bristol City were just informing their fans about the game ahead, and they said, there's a slight delay here, guys, because there's a squirrel on the pitch. Have you got? So there was said squirrel on the pitch in the Bristol City game, which I think is fucking brilliant, because all of this mega multi-million pound footballers, shit like that just makes me smile. It really does.
Honestly, mate.
And it's the fact how long it took as well.
Yeah, get the fastest lad. Get the quickest lad at the pitch on. Come on, get after it, son.
Elanga would be great for that, wouldn't he? Because he'd catch that fucking thing in 2 seconds flat.
Finally, we've got a use for him. Do you know what I want to bring up though? Since we're talking about non-Newcastle, real quick, I did this on my video, and I just did the quick check on 4 games ago. Michael Carrick appointed Manchester United manager. Wow! When we were 6th and they were 7th, both on 32 points. Since that day, we played 4 games each. They've gained 12 points. We've gained 1 point. And people saying, "What good's changing the manager going to do? No one can do better than Eddie Howe." And I'm like, Michael Carrick just rocked up Man United, and they've won every game since. And it's just like, fair play to them. Like when I'm watching them, I'm like, this is annoyingly good, and I'm worried now. Like, and it's a Geordie manager as well. Of all, Oh, come off it.
It's funny because Matty from the Magpie channel, we talked about this the other week. He got clipped up for actually pointing that out. He's seen more innovative coaching in 3 games or two games from Carrick than he's seen. And he got dug out for it. He got happy clipped and dug out for it as well, and got a little bit of jip. But you're right, Mark. I mean, we watched Carrick in Middlesbrough, and I thought he looked good at the Championship. I thought he looked quite an innovative manager, and Morgan Rogers played for him, didn't he, as well? He got a real tune out of Morgan Rogers.
Cristiano Ronaldo was big enough at one point. I don't know if you've seen that clip where he was saying he knows football. This guy's going to be a really good manager, sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Mark, all the Man United fans and the pundits and that seem to be saying that Carrick won't get the gig full time. I mean, if he keeps doing what he's doing, and Man United don't give him the gig, is it worth Newcastle having a sniff around him if they are changing manager?
Well, yeah. But and you talk about the value in changing a manager. I mean, this is what can happen, and it proves that there are people out there that can come in and just change the mentality of the club instantly.
And the thing he changed clearly was, let's stop worrying about off the ball work and being positionally sound, and let's stop playing with the football and stop. And if you look at how Man United couldn't string 2 passes together against us at Old Trafford earlier this season, and then look at the free flowing football. I mean, obviously they've got a few players back since then, but I annoyingly admire what he's done there. Fair play to him. He's, because I thought this is another player manager job, and he's really impressed me.
Well, Leo's a Man U fan. He comes to our chat quite a lot. He's a nice Man U fan, though. We like Leo in the chat. He says if he gets the Champions League, he'll get the job, and then we'll bin him by Christmas. I love that optimism. Fucking class. I love that, mate. That's what football fans should.
Well, they're sniffing around Tonali, mind. I mean, and apparently they're prioritizing Tonali over Elliot Anderson, which I think would be a mistake personally. I think Elliot Anderson's a much better player, which
he is, and I can't see Newcastle getting Anderson back. Lads, I think that ship is long.
He's off to Man City, in my opinion. If Pep stays, especially.
Yeah. Do you think Pep will stay? There's a lot of noise about him going?
I think it depends on whether he wins the title this season. I think if he wins the league this season, he might jack it. But I don't think he will win it, and I think he'll stay for another season, and he'll get Elliot Anderson. And I think you mentioned this earlier. I know I'm bringing it back to Newcastle, but nowhere near enough is made of the Elliot Anderson situation at Newcastle. In that, for example, I was watching the Geordie journals earlier, and they said, well, if Leo Shahar was ready, Eddie sees him in training every day, he'd probably be playing. I'm like, but look at what Eddie did with Elliot Anderson. That's where I'm second guessing him from forever now, because you let the best number 6 in the country right now walk out the door after playing him in the wrong position as a number 8 a handful of games, and thinking that he wasn't good enough when he's clearly a better player than arguably everyone aside from Bruno.
Yeah, Mark, it's crackers, isn't it? So we left X after all of the noise, and to be fair, we were thinking about doing it anyway. That was just to kind of nail in the coffin. It went in the Blue Sky, and I says to Mark, we'll have a dabble on Blue Sky. And I put a couple of nice, quite calm posts out, and I said about playing Leo Shahar, and I got somebody come back at me quite quickly and says, Leo Shahar, you fucking idiot. And I said, well, I said, have you seen him play? And he said, yeah, I have seen him play, and he's nowhere near ready. And I said, well, why don't you just say that then? Why do you have to shout the abuse and stuff?
Can I just talk about this Twitter thing? Come on, we need to have a little chat about this, because I've been talking to you about this, and you've left X, formerly known as Twitter, after they clipped you up. Yeah. What are they saying then? What are they saying? Because I've been clipped up a million times. So But
they clipped me up obviously when I had a rant about how after the City game, and I mean I did go a little bit far. I called him a cowardly shithouse wanker and said he was a PE teacher, and then they clipped me up.
Half true.
Half true.
Cowardly PE teacher.
Yeah. He wasn't a wanker. He's a lovely fellow, isn't he? But I got a bit of stick, but I thought no, I'll come on a microphone, because that's one thing with me. I'll always say, hey, maybe I was a little bit over top. So we do a show called The Aftermath, and the whole point of The Aftermath, Mark will tell you, is post-match, Brian, is instant, it's reactive, it's raw. It doesn't matter if you're in your armchair. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're in your armchair or if you're in the stadium. And what I said behind the microphone is the same as what somebody would have said in the stadium, or somebody would have said in the pub after the game, or somebody would have said walking out the ground. I was watching, I think it's at Northeast Updates. They do like kind of fan cams outside the ground. And they're talking to this lovely old fella, and he was talking about how we were shite until Eddie Howe came, we're brilliant and all that. And as he was saying it, there was about 4 lads went past, went, fucking shite, we're fucking shite. And they're all saying it as they went past.
I've seen that clip, I've seen it.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's exactly what I said behind here. But the difference is when you do it on YouTube, as you know better than me, Brian, they'll clip you up. But normally it's other fans that'll clip you up from Man United channels or Liverpool channels or whatever it is. But now our own fans are clipping us up because of this whole divide. It is quite sad, but I do think after my little Blue Sky incident, it was quite, because the guy actually come back to me and he said, oh, sorry, mate. He said, I thought you were that channel who says things for clicks and likes. I went, well, I am that channel, mate. I says, but don't say that. And I went, I'll do you a favor, block it. So I blocked them. But I said to Mark, there is no safe social media space at the minute to talk about football without getting abuse, and it's quite a sad state of reality, really, mate.
Well, I don't know if it makes you feel any better, but I've had Newcastle fans turn on me since the very first video I made.
But Niall Ranger, my God, who could have turned on you for that?
There was abusive comments saying I was a this, that, and the other in that video. I had people say, "I hope your mum dies of cancer" in early videos, even Newcastle fans. So, and this is the thing about Newcastle as an area. And I love it. And I love the working class nature of us a lot, and in the fact that we are cheeky and up for a laugh and not afraid to speak our mind. But equally, there's also a crab mentality among some people who, if you've got the bravery to get on camera and speak your mind, they think, who does he think he is? I wouldn't do that. I'm going to bring him down a peg or two. And it's a shame because, you kind of want to, even if you disagree with your own, I always want to support our lot, even if I disagree with them. And there are just some people out there who don't like that, and comes with the territory. That's why when I drop videos, that's why I've got my comments turned off on Twitter and all of that shit.
I noticed that.
It's not even that people are like, oh, well, you're not really open for debate. I'm like, I'm not trying to make friends on this platform, but I'm also not trying to piss people off. I just want to put my stuff out there. If you like it, great. If you don't have to watch it. But that's where they're they can't help it because and some people live fucking sad lives. And that's another thing you have to accept. you know, some people are just wandering around online looking for a person to fucking lash out at because they hate their job, they're fucking pissed off with their missus or whatever, and they don't know you personally, you're not the real issue. It's just a thing to get it all out against. And I know people who send these kind of comments as well. Like, I've got mates who do this, and I'm like, fucking hell. So I don't take it personally either.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a learning curve for us. You know, we're not professionals at this. You know, like I've got a day job. You know, I'm a dad. I've got a day job. You know, and you know, if you happen to get to the point, I mean, let's get it right, Brian. You know, 2+ million people cannot be wrong, mate. You know, you've been doing this a long time. You know, there's clearly more than a few people that like what you do, mate. You know what I mean? So,
and I don't even think about it that way either, and I don't think you should either, mate. I don't think like in terms of you should just be thinking about what your real opinion is. And I think when you came on the week after and you curbed it a bit, I thought, like, as a fan of you, as much as you might want to refrain from calling someone a wanker or whatever, fair enough, I've been there. But don't curb your opinion for what people, you know, these negative people who are going to hate you, because they were going to hate you anyway. And the people who love you want you to just be yourself. So I'm just saying, as a fan of the channel, keep going. Tell them to fuck off. Right.
Yeah, thank you, mate. I do appreciate that. I did love one that was a big Paul of the Toon review, who's class. You've been on with Paul, and I was watching the other day, and I think it was a guy called Gary called him and Billy sad Mackems, and he just went, "How, Gary? Fuck off!" Like that was massive finger on the camera.
That's what I love. Because you know, and it's funny when people try and say you're inauthentic, but that's Geordie mentality right there in a nutshell. Paul's got
absolutely, absolutely, mate. But I appreciate that and all the kind words that everybody gave us as well. You know, on the channel, we've got a nice comment there for you, Brian, as well. Say, Brian, democracy is fantastic. Surely have to accept that people have alternative views. Yeah, we do. I would
absolutely.
Because you're high profile. Yeah, but I don't think Brian thinks that at all.
I've never ever thought that. If anything, I look back at old videos and old opinions I used to have, and I'm not trying to big myself up because this is the boys' channel, and I don't want to try and take over here. But while we're on the point, you'll be hard pressed to find a YouTuber who's grown up here more than I have over the last 10 years. I've humbled myself countless times, being humbled, whether I want to do or not sometimes, and I'm completely aware that I might completely disagree with myself in 5 years from now. And if you disagree with me, that's all right. But I don't have to, just because I turn my comments off, it's not about you know, thinking that I'm always right. It's that the level of abuse that comes with Twitter, it's not worth the discourse. The reward is not worth the shit. So it's like, it's just easier to drop your tweets, move on. And then when you get DMs and things like that from people who are like, "Hey, I've had mental health problems. You've really helped me. I lost a parent. You've really helped me." Or all that's when you get the gold. That's when you get real connections with your fan base. You don't get that on Twitter ever, pretty much.
No. It isn't nice, Mark, is it? I mean, it's not been a nice place, really. I think for a long period of time, that platform has it. Let's get it right.
No, and I think we kind of hummed and hawed over whether to continue to use it, because we didn't really see what actual benefit it brought to what we do and what we feel. And I think the comments like that about people that have been helped, and we've had those comments on videos when we've been live to say, "Look, I'm going through some shit. You guys you sit on it," especially on Monday. It's like, you just make us laugh on a Monday. It's that kind of thing where you've just helped me through that period of time. I look forward. I've got something to look forward to at the moment, and those sorts of things mean the world to you, because you're giving somebody a little bit of an outlet from whatever shit is going on in their life. It's just a little bit of normality, I guess, for them. So it's those are lovely. You're right. The cesspit that is just to give you that.
And it's hard for people to understand until you've been in front of the camera and that many people have seen you and analysed you in so many different ways. And it takes a lot of like getting comfortable with every imperfection you've got, because everything gets called out. And until you've had people send you messages saying, "I hope your mum dies of cancer," you don't really understand how bad and how nasty people can be because you've said something about their favourite football team that they don't agree with. So I just hope people understand that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a comment there for John as well, saying channels like this keep me sane while I care for my wife who has cancer and look after my 3 teenage boys. Thank you, guys. And that's what it's all about. I mean, my mum died of cancer, and this thing kept me sane, just me getting behind here and talking about the football club and, talking about a player we're maybe going to sign or, just having a rant about somebody, that really helped me deal with that grief, and like I said, it doesn't matter if you have the same opinion. It doesn't really matter. You just, this is a platform that you enjoy doing. It's cathartic. It's a nice step away from your normal life. And if you're lucky, sometimes you can do it, full time like you are, Brian. Which is incredible. Do you know what I mean? But it isn't about that, as you say. It's about what it brings to you and what it brings to the people who watch you as well.
And we all care about the same thing, mate. We all care about Newcastle. Absolutely. We all want them to win, and we all have different ideas on how that can happen. But it doesn't mean, and look, we all overstep the mark on video sometimes because you get like me, you, Paul, like there's a bit of a heat of the moment. You want your team to win, you're gutted, you disagree with what's going on, and people get you in the way. And that's what annoys me is like, especially when you've gone viral as many times as I have, you're like, fuck's sake. Like people have seen the worst versions of me. And there's some like videos I've made where I've done these great interviews and I'm like, if only people could have seen that version of me or the version of me now that's like had 10 years to like figure shit out. And because I pretty much grew up in front of a camera at this point.
You did.
And they don't get that that context of everything that's going on and all the learning and all the changing and that they just get that like one bad moment where you're screaming and you sound like a fucking lunatic. So it isn't as it is, that 1 second doesn't define people either. Like that 1 second of you the other day that was frustrated, it doesn't define you as a person. No. And if people take the time to watch your channel like I have, you're a fucking great bloke.
No, thank you, mate. I mean, that was a 1 minute clip out of a 50-minute show. And
exactly. And it was fucking great.
That
brilliant
just shows you. Yeah, that just shows you what it's all about, mate. But listen, I think we've had your time long enough tonight, Brian. We really appreciate you coming on tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, mate. Really appreciate it. Always good to hear your opinions on Newcastle. Strong. You back them up with facts as well. We've covered a lot of stuff tonight, and we've got to remember Newcastle are playing tomorrow. So we'll be back behind the mic for a live post-match reaction. Try to be calm, no matter what happens. No, on a serious note, I'll be whatever I am when the game finishes. But we'll be back. Remember to like and subscribe, guys. Hype the video, help the channel grow. We appreciate all you in this great community. It's a safe space to chat here. There's been a few people here tonight that love Eddie Howe and want him to stay in a job, and that's class. More power to your elbow with that, guys. Brian doesn't agree with it. I think he's maybe reached the end of his road as well. Mark's got splinters in his backside as always. That's just the way. That's the way.
It's hard to watch as well, isn't it? Because you can't not love Eddie. Like when you see him broken and you see he's like, I can't question my commitment. I'm like, fuck me, this lad is really working his arse off and it's still not going right for him, which makes it even harder. Like you can't hate him.
Exactly. And you got to look at the players as well. You got to look at the players and say, listen, if you're letting that guy down, then what are you doing for him? But we'll be covering this, obviously, game against Spurs, massive game for Newcastle, massive few weeks for Newcastle ahead. This could get worse or it could get better, but whatever it is, come and join us on the Evermore YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a belt or whatever you're doing. Thanks to Brian again for jumping on. It's been absolutely class.
Thank you, mate.
See you later, everyone.
Love,
have a good one.
Cheers.
Take care, everyone.
They have done it.